Dear our learners, this is Odong Paul, Apalokwang, Trinity College in Abingo. I'm going to interact with you on this program, and my major concern today is to give you some information about the history of South Africa, especially the fifth topic, that is the African Wars of Resistance. In the introduction, I want you to be aware that the history of South Africa is characterized by several wars. These wars are categorized into various levels. We have the Great Trek Wars, the Battle of Wekop and the Battle of Bloody River. We have the Kafiri Wars, the wars between the Xhosa and the Boers and also the British. Then we have the Mifakane. That was the early 19th century crisis, which occurred as a result of state formation, started by the Ngiswayo, and it reached the climax during the Shaka's era, or Shaka's leadership. Shaka, the Zulu king. And we have other wars which we may look at it in the future. The Anglo-Boer Wars, also known as the Gentleman's Wars. The wars that were fought among the whites only, the first and the second Anglo-Boer Wars. Then we have the African strikes, that was during the apartheid policy, where we look at the Sharpeville demonstration and massacre, and then the Soweto uprising of 1976. But in particular today, I want to bring to your attention, the wars of resistance. We can either call them rebellion, as the whites call it, but it's better to use the word wars of resistance. And there were basically 5. The first was the Pedi War. Also, we call it the Bapedi War of Resistance, led by Sekukuni against the British and the Boers, which occurred between 1861 up to 1879. Quite a long war of 18 years. Then the Anglo-Zulu War. There were 2 wars that were fought in 1879 between the Zulu under Cetewayo and the British, led by Battle Frere. So there were 2 wars. The first one occurred in January, in which the Zulu under Cetewayo defeated the British. And later, at the Battle of Ulundi in July, the Africans were finally defeated, and Cetewayo, the Zulu leader, was deported. Then there was the Basuto War, also known as the War for the Guns. That was fought between 1878 to 1880, during the time of the Basuto leader in the name of Moshosho or Moshesh, against the British, when the British came up with a peace preservation bill in an attempt to disarm the Basuto. They rejected, and the war sparked off. Then there was the Nama Herero uprising. This was a war fought between the Africans in Southwest Africa, Namibia. The Nama and Herero fought against the Germans, but unfortunately they were defeated. Then the last war was the Bambatha Rebellion of 1906 against the British. The Bambatha was one of the local chiefs, the Zulu chief, the Induna, that fought against the British. Unfortunately, the British defeated the Zulu. Now, when we're looking at these wars, we need to go into detail to look at the causes of these wars and the consequences of these wars. And to make the reading of these wars much easier. Try to look at the the disgruntlement. Africans were disappointed. Eh, They had some hatred against the Europeans because of the European policies. For example, the grabbing of African land, what we normally call the land alienation, undermining African culture, referring to Africans as the second, uh, the, 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 the second class citizens, and enslavement of the Africans, among others. Now, as a way of revising this important topic and a very popular topic, I require that all of you draw a table. This table will guide you on which war was fought, where, who was the leader of the war on the side of the Africans, and the leader on the side of the Europeans. So I kindly advise that you draw a table. Write the title of this table, Wars of Resistance in South Africa. And then draw 7 columns. The first column, write a country. The second column, you write the rebellion or the war. Then the third column, write another name of this rebellion. Because when they're setting UNEP or even internal exams, normally they may not call it the petty war. They can say African-European war of this period. So you need to know the other names of these wars. Then the fourth column, write the year when these wars occurred or were fought. Then write the name of the African leaders. If you can remember 1 or 2, very important. Then also write another column, the 6 columns to show the European leaders who were involved in these wars. Then also put there the winners. The last column should be the winners, because it will guide you. If they ask you, why were the Basuto able to defeat the British? Meaning that during the Basuto War of the Gun, the Basuto at first defeated the British, but later they were finally defeated. Now, after drawing this column, for example, I can give you an example. A country, let me talk about the Petty War of Resistance as the first one. So you write a country, Petty Land, the rebellion, the Petty War. Another name, you can say Petty Boer Zulu War. Then the year, 1861, 1878. Then African leaders, you write Sekukuni. Sekukuni, the son of Sekwati, was the leader. Then the European leaders, look at there was General Garnet Wolseley. There was a Battle of Frere. Then the winner of this war, the war was won by the British. The same thing you do to the Anglo-Zulu War. You can write the country, the Zululand. The rebellion was the Anglo-Zulu War. Then another name for this war was the British Zulu War. Then the year 1879. Then the African leader during the Anglo-Zulu War was Setewayo. Then the European leaders, look at the commander, Battle of Frere. The same thing to Basuto. It was fought in the Basuto land. The rebellion was called the Basuto War. It was also referred to as the War for the Gun, another name. Then it was fought between 1878 up to 1880. Then African leaders look at Murosi, look at Letsi, look at Lerothodi as examples of the African leaders. Then the European leaders look at Major Griffith. And the war was initially won by the Basuto, but later the Basuto were defeated. The same thing when you go to Nama Herero uprising. It was fought in Namibia or Southwest Africa. Now this rebellion was called the Nama Herero uprising or rebellion. Then another name can call it the the crisis the crisis between Africans and the Germans in Southwest Africa. Then the year was 1904. Then Africans were led by Ma Herrero, by Morenga, Simon Cooper, among others. Then the European leaders were led by General Lothar Trotha, and the governor by then was Leitwi. So the same thing to Bambatha rebellion. So when you bring out this, it becomes very easy. This approach will help you to give a very clear introduction whenever a question is set on these wars. But the causes of these wars were basically disgruntled Africans were disappointed by the European policies of grabbing African land, the unfair land policies, the unfair taxation. However, when we're looking at consequences, the consequences were more negative because it involved loss of lives, loss of property, loss of political status, since most of these African leaders were overthrown, were removed from their power. Loss of independence, outbreak of famine. But on the positive point of view, is that this resistance united Africans and promoted the spirit of African nationalism. Dear learners, this is a very brief interaction. And from that, I want to give you an assignment to keep you busy. Just one assignment, but you can look at very many questions within this area. So the first question, question 1, and a part of it is what were the causes of the British Zulu War of 1879? I repeat, what were the causes of the British Zulu War of 1879? Then the B part of it, why was African resistance short-lived? I repeat, why was African resistance short-lived? I therefore conclude and wish you safe stay at home. Continue revising, continue praying. As we pray for you, we pray for each other. May God bless you and bless your family. I remain Apalokwang.